a slightly different unboxing video, only in that the thing I have ordered has arrived in a brown paper envelope from Ipswich, and I'll say a little bit about how this is advertised. But what it is a kit to build a G-scale locomotive. And what I've done is I've just opened the envelope, and inside is a plastic bag which contains all the required components for building the locomotive body. You have to put it onto your own chassis. And so there's a piece of quarter round dowel, a couple of pieces of probably quarter inch square, a piece of brass rod, some tubing, set of instructions. So this is rail, if you can see that up there, I'll zoom in. It says on there, Railroad Models Quarry Loco Kit. Read everything first. So a set of instructions showing you how to build a loco, and all the parts for building it. I think there's a picture there of what it should look like. This is available through GRS, Garden Rail Supplies, Garden Rail Specialists, sorry, not Garden Rail Supplies. It does give their address. Please note we're not connected to GRS in any way, so parts are outside their control. But the web address there is rail-roadmodels.co.uk, and there's a picture of, I think it's the real thing rather than the kit. And that's possibly part of the misleading things, is when you see a picture of the real thing. However, I did email the people first and did get reply that what I was paying for was in fact a card kit. And so what we get are some sheets of paper, printed, I think they call it architect's paper, or glossy paper, some architect's board. It's bonded onto some of the, I think they call it architect board. I'm not quite sure. There was in my early youth something called Passe Partout board. It looks like there are two sheets of something stuck together here. Don't know if they're meant to be separated or not. Maybe it's two parts of the loco. I suspect it might be. Yes, there it is. And so that's 3 sheets of card with some paper bonded to it, and a little bit of brass. And what we will do is see how well this builds up. So there we have it. I'm not sure what time I have at the moment. I've got quite a heavy work commitment. But there's the cutting mat. I think I need a sharp craft knife, and I will now read the instructions. So let's see how this turns out. And what I'll do before posting the video is get the images which appear in their advertisements, so that you can make from this video initially, you'll see what you get compared to with what's shown in the advertisements, because I think we can go into these with our eyes open. If we're building a card kit, we know we're building a card kit. If it looks good at the end of the day, we're very happy that it looks good, if it performs and functions well. But let's not be, I won't say missold, let's not be unaware of what it is that we're getting ourselves into. This is not a laser cut kit. This is not a pre-printed or pre-stamped kit. It is basically the sheets of card and some glossy paper stuck onto it that has got to be cut out. And I think we need to be aware of that before we start. One of the first things I noticed that trying to remove the piece of plastic tubing removes the printing from the instructions. I'm going to have to cut it off. Just a minor thing. This section is very helpful if you're wanting to build this kit, because it tells you that to build a model you will need Good quality, double-sided tape. That's awkward to deal with sometimes, I find. Card glue such as Yoo-hoo. I think I've got some Rocket card glue. A sharp craft knife. Always that means putting in a new blade. A steel rule, polyurethane varnish, black marker pen or black paint, cyanoacrylic glue, that's super glue, useful. The card sheets applied are not waterproof, so take care at this stage. Use a good quality, we suggest Plasticoat gloss, polyurethane varnish spray. So you apply one light coat to the sheets and allow to dry fully for at least 24 hours. Do not soak with varnish. And I'm assuming that you might do that before cutting the sheets up. As you'll see, I've got a cutting mat. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about a cutting mat being needed. And presumably clothes pegs, clips, spring-loaded clips, the usual things. If you've done any modelling, you wouldn't attempt this unless you've done some modelling, I would hope. Blue tack to hold things together. Elastic bands. I have a pack of elastic bands. I'll probably have those out at some stage. You'll see me using them, I'm sure, just to hold things together while the glue sets. Although I have tried the Rocket card glue and I find that is seems like it's a mix of super glue and PVA. It says Yoo-hoo as card glue down there. PVA works fine. I know it's not waterproof. I don't know if Yoo-hoo is, but the point is if you're going to have to waterproof the whole thing afterwards anyway, then you will be covering up the PVA. Okay, so there we go. I've read the instructions on how to build the quarry Hunslet from Railroad Models. I haven't seen anywhere on YouTube an instructional video, and having read the instructions and looked at the parts before cutting anything apart, there are some bits of it which are not quite clear. I'm sure I'll work it out, but because it's going to need some thinking and working out, I may well this time do a how to build, but bear in mind this is my first attempt. I'm going at it with it straight out of the packet. I've not practiced anything beforehand, and so you may well get a video which shows this is how not to do it. Let's see. This is probably grandmother's and eggs time, but just a tip, you've probably watched a surgeon insert a scalpel blade onto a scalpel handle. This is Swan Morton handle, available from craft shops. It's the same as what a surgeon would use if it was cutting you open. What you do is you hold the blade inside its grease-proof paper wrapping that it comes in. That protects you from the sharp edge of the blade. You know, you just grip the blade like that, so it's still in the wrapping. At least that's what the surgeons tend to do. This is a short blade, so I can't see much, and it's a snap onto the handle. So there's a slot in one part of it that slides up. It's on. Simple as that. It just slides in and then clicks into place. Taking it off, you obviously have to release it from there. But just the bit about keeping it inside the wrapper avoids the possibility of getting a cut to some extent. I'm finding that with 3 passes you're getting through this 1.5mm card. That's what it is, with nice even pressure. How do you tell when you're through? I don't know. What I find is the feel of it changes when I'm onto the cutting mat. I'm using a proper self-healing cutting mat at the moment. Oh, where is it? But from IKEA, you can get kitchen cutting mats. There it is. It's underneath that lot at the back. That red, thin, flexible mat, and also a thicker traditional type mat. But these thin, flexible ones, that one's fairly hacked about by me under there. Not from doing any kitchen cutting. and is a lot cheaper than the self-healing cutting mat that I've got this on at the moment. Almost disposable. There might be £1, I think I mentioned before. Definitely worth getting those from IKEA. Go and buy a couple. This is more the traditional modeller's cutting mat. So far so good. That's the Loco floor with these side strips. That's parts 1, 2 and 3, and some wooden strips to reinforce the corner. When you cut across the card, that's you cut across all 3 pieces and that makes them all the same length, but the wooden strip is much longer than needs be. I glued the card to it first and then cut the strip. I didn't have my X-Acto fine-tooth saw blade, so I just cut it with a hacksaw blade, and the edges have been coloured. I tried using a spirit-based indelible marker. Remember, it's going to be waterproofed, and I found it was much easier to use a washable marker. These are cheaper anyway. You buy them for children. They're sold as washable, so that Crayola washable marker, and that flowed more easily into the edges of the card than the spirit-based one. I think the spirit-based one may dry out more quickly. So just the very first stage, and as you can see, using my tweezers and pegs to hold it together. I think it will be dry now with this rapid. It's an experiment really to see how well it goes together with Deluxe Materials Rocket Card Glue, which I'm trying out. I'm not, what should I say, promoting it particularly. Just wanted to try it out. The next bits I have to cut out are the parts that make the cab back. It can be a half cab or full cab. I'm going to do it full cab. And this is where we get our first attempt at something a little bit more tricky, which is cutting curves, circles, a gentle curve for the roof line. So we'll have to see how I get on with that on this particular material. Rather than cutting things out of the middle of the stock material, I find it easier to cut all the way through to the edge. So in this case, if I'm cutting all the way through to that edge with a couple of runs, then I can see when it's cut all the way through, because that just falls away. I'm not sure if I'm making this clear, but that's rather than just cutting to a point and cutting round the item that I'm cutting out. If I do that, I'm not quite sure when I've got all the way through. But if I find a point at which I can cut right the way across to the edge, then when it's cut through, it's far more obvious, because the piece actually falls away. And similarly here, as I'm cutting out that piece, I just cut through, and I'd hope that after 3 it's through. And when I was trying to cut a thing out of the solid object, so say I was cutting out these pieces and I was cutting down and around, I wouldn't know that I'd really finished cutting unless it falls away. I'm not sure how this works out on the finished thing, but I find it easier, or should I say safer, to use a good pair of scissors when cutting a curve. The disadvantage of this is you don't get as sharp and clean an edge to the cut. There are various ways of tidying it up. It's not bad, and far safer than trying to cut a curve without any ruler using a very sharp scalpel knife. Practice with different types of scissors and you'll find a type of scissors which you find will handle this thickness of card easily. And it is possible to sand up a card edge, and you can always impregnate it with PVA And once card is impregnated with PVA, it becomes very hard, like wood, and then you can treat it like wood. You can sand it and do other things, machine it. Don't knock card modelling. I'm sitting here in front of Solway Sands, and most of that, why isn't it focusing? Most of this model is made out of the same card that I'm using to build this loco. So that's this same type of card that's been cut and paper strips on top of it, and it can make a very fine model. It's fairly obvious if you're cutting freehand without the steel ruler that you will have your finger this side and be cutting away, so that you hold the material there and you pull the blade gently towards you, and that way you pull it in a fashion that you're not swinging on it, you're just gently easing it along, so that it's not going to run and slip anyway. So hand the far side of the blade, so you're not pulling towards your hand, but you're pulling away from it. And it's not going to run over this hand because you're actually holding the blade with that hand. I'm now going to cut through. I had a go at this one with scissors, and I don't know if you can see what a rough edge it is. This one I've cut with a blade. It's not easy. So I'm going to try what I just suggested before, which is that if I soak that in PVA, and in this case not PVA but the glue I was using, when the glue hardens then it will produce a hard edge that can be sanded and made smooth. A new scalpel blade at this point, because I'm on to, I would consider, a fairly tricky part, cutting out the portholes. But even then, that's rather a mess. So what I'm going to do is have a go with a piece of sandpaper, make a conical reaming type roll of sandpaper, and see if I can tidy that up with the sandpaper. Look at that, it's torn through. That's with a brand new scalpel blade. This is a different shaped blade, I don't know why. Must have got a strange packet. And I'm assuming that after half a dozen cuts I need to change from the previous blade. Well, the sandpaper reamer certainly improves matters, makes it look a little bit more professional. Or varnish. Just doing some cutting out. If you can arrange it so that the waste material curves up when you're cutting, and you can slide the wood, not the wood but the card, through the scissors in that way, then cutting with the scissors is far safer and quicker than cutting with the scalpel blade. And this is a part that's going to be laminated to another part, so once straightened it's going to be fine.